Hello and welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you here today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We still have some folks coming in, so as you all are getting settled and ready for our webinar, go ahead and open up your chat and let us know why you're here and where you're calling in from. What brings you today to this webinar, and where are you calling in from? Go ahead and open up the chat. We've got Marie from Indianapolis. Hi, Marie. Joellen. Nancy from St. Louis. Good to see you. Here they come. Getting lots of answers coming in. Annette from Springfield. We've got someone from Austin. Bill from Washingtonville. I'm not going to be able to keep up with all of these. We've got Davenport, Iowa. Penn, New York. California. Wisconsin. Milwaukee, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio. I love this. I love the diversity of folks joining in today. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We are so glad to have you here today for our webinar, Congress, Keep Your Promise. Our work for thriving communities continues. Go ahead and keep putting your answers in the chat. Where are you coming from? But also, what brings you here today? Why do these issues that we're here to talk about and learn more about matter to you? What brings you here today? Social and environmental justice, raising awareness. Still got folks telling us where they're from. Cincinnati, Cleveland, Ohio's well represented. Well represented. I love it. Important for life of people today. Love it. Great. Welcome. Well, we're so glad to have you here. And as you keep bringing those answers in, I just want to go over a few quick housekeeping things to get us started. We do have captions available for today. So I want to make sure you know that. To turn on captions, down at the bottom of your screen is this button that says closed captions. And if you click on it, it'll show captions. They are auto-generated, so they're very imperfect, but they will help if that's something that would help you out. We also have a question and answer feature. So right now you're answering things in the chat. During the webinar, we're going to have the chat turned off. So we want to make sure that you're asking any questions that you have for our panelists in the Q&A space. In the Q&A space, you can ask any questions that you have. So that is right next to the captions option, right where that arrow points. Finally, you've already figured this out, but when I'm asking you questions, you can answer them with that chat feature as long as it's open. So I'm so excited to welcome you all here today, and we have a really phenomenal panel for you today. So excited for our policy experts, our team at Network, Laura Peralta Schulte, who's our Senior Director of Public Policy and Government Relations, Jarrett K. Smith, who's one of our government relations advocates, Minister Christian Watkins, another one of our government relations advocates, and Mary Novak, our Executive Director, are all here with us today. We're also really excited to be joined by Serena Martin Ligori and Lupe Mendoza, who are some special guests joining us today. You'll hear more about that. So to get us started, I'd like to welcome Laura.
Thank you. And it is so wonderful to be with everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My friends, we are, as you well know, talking about funding for our government. That is one of the responsibilities that Congress has, one of the primary responsibilities. And if you are watching the news, you know that we are in a bit of a pickle. So in terms of the fiscal year, the government runs on a September 30th deadline. So we've got 11 days to either do one of two things: pass all 12 spending bills or pass a continuing resolution. If that does not happen, then we will be in the midst of a government shutdown. Go ahead and go to the next. So just to set a frame for you, I'm going to say congratulations to the women of the Senate leading the discussions on our spending priorities. They are two Catholic women, Patty Murray and Susan Collins. They have done their job. So they have finished all of the spending bills. They have funded those bills to what was required in the debt ceiling bill. You'll recall that the crisis of earlier in the year around the debt ceiling, part of that agreement was an agreement about how much we would spend for FY24. So they have met the task, they have done the job. Those are bipartisan bills. The House is not in the same place. They have passed one bill out of committee. And they have taken the tact that they do not want to spend what was agreed upon. So all of their bills are significantly less than what was agreed to earlier in the year. With that as background, we know that a CR is the only choice to meet the September deadline. You can go to the next year. So let's state of play right now. So the Senate, again, is working in a very productive manner. They are trying to move some bills forward, and they are ready when they need to push forward a continuing resolution. Now, many of them would like to include some extra funding on that for Ukraine, for emergency disasters, particularly for Hawaii and for Florida, for immigration, and even a little bit of WIC money they've put in. The House, though, is in a very different situation where you've got 33 members of the Freedom Caucus. They are demanding significant cuts to move anything. And they want to have what we call policy riders on there that are not related to spending along too. So the speaker has 5 members that he can lose. He still wants to go it alone, meaning a Republican-only bill. So that is the state of play. Let's keep going. So how does this threaten our agenda? And why are we gathering you today for help? So for us, we were pleased in the earlier part of the year that there was bipartisan agreement around the debt ceiling. But we lost a little bit there too. I think on balance, the agreement was fair, but our programs suffered, SNAP and others. So when we look at this situation, we are calling on Congress to use the debt ceiling numbers as the basement. They should not be funding below that. That was agreed to by the House, the Senate, and the White House. So the concern about the funding totals are one issue. The other is the riders that I talked about earlier. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And frankly, a government shutdown itself, particularly if it holds for a couple of weeks, really impacts the communities that are most vulnerable first. So, the goal is to try to avoid that and get a nice bipartisan agreement without any riders. If you go to the next one. Let me give you just an example, because it's so clear to me the moral issues that are engaged when you're talking about budgets and the difference between the House and Senate bill. WIC is a prime example. So WIC is the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infant, and kids. This is baby formula and food for the most vulnerable among us. So the Senate, the women of the Senate did a good job at funding the WIC program at what the president had requested. And it's a little bit over the FY23 budget because the need is so great. The House bill, on the other hand, gives devastating cuts to the program. And really they're walking back from what has been a long bipartisan tradition of supporting WIC. Let's go to the next slide. What does that mean? So not only does that House bill freeze funding to the 23 levels, and remember, this is still a time of high inflation. If you guys are at the grocery store lately, we still know that food costs are high. What they also do, though, is target specific line items like fruit and vegetables for kids. So they defund a significant amount of the program for fruit and vegetables. What does that mean? It means that if we are not funding at the right level, we can expect long waiting lines. We know that in order for kids and families to be healthy, you need good, nutritious food, particularly fruit and vegetables. So the numbers that we are seeing is upwards of 700,000 young kids, pregnant individuals, and new parents being turned away, with 4.6 million current participants facing deep cuts. These are moral questions. These are moral questions. If you can keep going, I will wrap it up. The other thing that I really want to draw your attention to, because this was the subject of discussions on the House floor today, again, the Freedom Caucus is looking to put different, what we call riders, into the bill. This is not related to numbers. This is related to policy. So in a bill that was supposed to go through the House today, what did they attach to a bill that would cut 8% of the budget from the already low budgets in the House on each of the appropriations bill? They attached the Secure Border Act, which criminalizes families at the border, which harms the faith community, particularly the Catholic community's ability to respond both at the border and in the interior of the country. There are all kinds of games being played. And so I just really want to call out, because we've been working a lot on the immigration space, that is at risk in the context of this debate. What else are they trying to cut? Tax in the tax space. They're trying to defund the Internal Revenue Service. They're trying to eliminate programs that we're working hard. For example, a program that would allow low-income people to automatically file with the help of the IRS. Just like we came to you in the beginning of the year, food programs, and particularly the SNAP program, is right at the center of the debate once again. They want to cut funding. They want to reduce family benefits. They want to strengthen work requirements or set new limitations on people's access to food. And they want to restrict states' ability to meet hardship. So these are just an example, not an exhaustive list. They're going after environmental provisions and other things as well. I saw that in the chat. This is the work of the moment. This will be the work for the remainder of the year to make sure that our people are whole. And with that, I'll pass it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope. I was just going to welcome Jarrett. So Jarrett is here. Welcome, Jarrett. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sister Emily. Thank you, Laura, for starting us off. What I'm going to talk about is the child tax credit. The child tax credit has been a part of the tax code for a number of years now. Is this the first slide? Okay. All right. So, all right. Thank you. So the child tax credit was created to help families raise children. There was a change to the tax credit in 2017 when the Trump administration passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It made some modifications to who is eligible to receive the credit. The maximum credit is $2,000 per child, and the refund per child amount is $1,400, but that was increased to $1,500 to compensate for inflation. Next slide, please. Who has access to the child tax credit? Currently, it is not fully refundable. So there's people that do not pay income taxes, or they do not hit the threshold of what is required to get the tax credit, don't get it. And it is currently geared towards those people that make a lot of money, $400,000 for married couples. They get the full credit, and $200,000 for single parents. But that means at the current writing of the child tax credit, millions and millions of kids are not eligible for the credit. But those children in families that have a lot more economic means, a lot more wealth, are getting access to the CTC. So we had this program called the American Rescue Plan, and it was created during the throes of the pandemic. It provided CTC access that we had never seen before. It was $3,000 per child ages 6 or over, and $3,600 per child under 6. It was fully refundable, and part of that credit was paid in monthly installments. The rest families received in their tax return. The monthly installments had never been done before. Many folks believed that it was not possible, but we were able, the government was able to get those monthly installments out to families, and they proved to be something that changed the direction of poverty in this country. Columbia University did research on the CTC during the American Rescue Plan, and millions of children were lifted out of poverty, not just because of the amount of money that the families received, but it was fully refundable. So those people on the lower economic side of the balance sheet received the tax credit, and it was given in monthly installments. That meant that folks, that if you needed money to pay your rent, or you needed money because your car broke down, you had that child tax credit available to you in that monthly payment. Next slide, please. So what is Network Lobby's goal for the CTC? We are working very hard with members of both sides of the aisle to bring back the American Rescue Plan version of the child tax credit. It has been unbelievable what it has done for child poverty in this country. Recently, the census put out numbers on poverty, and because the child tax credit was reset to what it was previous before the ARPA plan, child poverty in this country has doubled. So there is already proof that if you want to reduce poverty, which is a policy choice in this country, we have the mechanism to do it. There is going to be a tax bill by the end of this year. The House Ways and Means Committee voted out of committee a tax bill that right now primarily helps large corporations and wealthy people. But we are working with our supporters and colleagues over on Representative Lara's office, Senators Bennett, Booker, and Brown, to take the bills that they have released and take elements of those bills and add them to whatever this end of the year tax bill looks like. It makes zero sense that we can give more and more money to large corporations and billionaires and not make sure that those people that are most in need, those people that are most vulnerable, do not have access to the resources they need to improve their quality of life in each and every day. And so here at Network, that's what I work on, to make sure that the child tax credit becomes robust and a reality for Americans throughout this country. One thing that I would like to also mention is I've had a number of meetings with GOP senators, and they are very interested in the child tax credit. They know that there will not be a business tax package without increasing and making the child tax credit revised and make it refundable for more and more people in this country. Had a meeting today with Senator Casey's office, and the staffer said that folks that represent the business community also know that the only way there will be a tax bill that provides relief for research and development and other areas of the tax code that business would like to see, there must be a child tax credit added to that legislation. So by the end of the year, we are thinking December, we should see a tax bill. And this is just the start of improving the child tax credit. If we cannot get everything that we want at this bite at the apple, by 2025, when the Trump tax bill is reset, then we will have another opportunity to make changes to the child tax credit and make sure that it is robust, that it provides the relief that children all over this country deserve, and it will help millions and millions of people. There has not been any other program that has done the same type of reduction in poverty for children like the child tax credit. So next slide, please. So thank you very much, and I will turn it back to Sister Emily.
Thank you so much, Jarrett. And we are so pleased today to welcome Lupe Mendoza to share a little bit of her story about the impact of the child tax credit. So thanks for joining us, Lupe.
Thank you, Emily. My name is Lupe Mendoza, and I live in Washington State. So it is not evening yet here for me. I'm a mom to 5 boys, and I still have 3 young ones at home, with my youngest being 10. So not last year, when the child tax credit hit, the way it helped my family was, it honestly came at a time that I did not realize I needed it. When I first heard about it, I had thought to opt out and just leave it as, like that. But in the middle of COVID, I found myself with having to find a new place to live. Due to some circumstances, I wasn't going to fight my landlord, and I had found something that was, a bedroom bigger and an extra bathroom. And that just worked well. However, my problem was I had put in all my costs to first month's rent, last month's rent, deposit, which is, a quite hefty amount. And I was left scrambling with how I was going to pay gas or how I was going to move my belongings. And honestly, I get automatic text message. So my bank had sent me the text, and I was, shocked, but a happy shocked. And it came when I needed it. So it helped me so much with, renting. a U-Haul. I rented from a local place here in town. So that money that I got from the C2C credit went into the community and then came back into the community, which, you know, it's very beneficial for, you know, our economy. I work with a caseload of 40 families for an ECAP preschool program, which is a state-funded program, and I work with an extreme poverty a low. So that year when that tax credit came in, I had many families share with me that tax credit was helping them put food on the table. It was helping them pay their bills, pay their rent. You know, I would have to say that 90% of my families use that money to just pay their basic means to get by. And so, you know, having the child tax credit is very beneficial. Every family can use that for what they need to. You know, I am a Christian, and I just believe that I had forgot about the C2C coming in and it was perfect because it just came as a divine appointment for me. And it relieved so much stress with my boys growing as well. I mean, I think I had like $300 or $400. With the 3 boys, I got $750. And I used it to also, you know, buy clothing for them, just because through COVID, the twice as much as eating, they outgrew their clothing. And even though they weren't going to school, you know, they still, that clothing needed to be replaced. So that's how it has impacted me and my family. You know, and I'm a single parent. And then this last year, I have found myself in that same predicament where, you know, I could have used that money. Even right now, I'm going to tell you, I actually honestly, one of my vehicles broke down, and I'm fortunate enough to have 2. So my better vehicle broke down, and I'm waiting for a part to come in. I actually had to ask my mom to borrow that money. So if that C2C credit would have came in, you know, I would have had that little bit of extra money and not had to have asked my mom, you know, to borrow that extra $150. And so, you know, I am very huge on advocating and supporting to making the C2C credit, you know, something permanent for not only my family, but for all families in America. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Lupe, for sharing your story with us, and for talking about and being part of the work to expand this credit so that it's fully available to all people. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome my colleague, Minister Christian Watkins, who will be sharing with us about the Farm Bill, the Restore Act, and SNAP benefits. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. And it's good to be with you all today. As the slides come up, we will be talking about the 2023 Farm Bill. This is a bill that has to be reauthorized every 5 years, and it expires on September 30th, 2023 of this year. So it's one of those must-pass pieces of legislation that our Congress is having trouble with getting passed, but we're going to be rolling with them and advocating for its passage nonetheless. This bill encompasses nearly all federal agriculture and food policy. That's the crop subsidies and the insurance and the conservation and international food aid, and the domestic hunger prevention, including SNAP measures and school lunch programs and food bank support. So all those things that support anti-hunger measures for our nation are encapsulated in this bill. Now, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, it's our nation's most essential hunger prevention tool. The Farm Bill's centerpiece. It's the centerpiece of the Farm Bill, accounting for approximately 80% of the bill's funding. So this year we have an uncertain future for the bill. It's unlikely to be decided until Congress agrees to an overall appropriations measures. There's a good chance of the Farm Bill being extended for months or even a year. So we'll see what Congress decides upon. And meanwhile, GOP Republican extremists are taking every opportunity to cut SNAP. So that's where our work is cut out for this particular measure, in addition to the Restore Act, which I'm getting to in a little bit. But for the most part, we will continue our faithful advocacy, protecting SNAP and making sure that our children and that our families are not left out of the government's work. Now, in order to protect SNAP, our network priorities for the Farm Bill are clear. Protect SNAP in two different ways. The first way, holding the line against GOP extremists' demands for cuts to current benefits and more punishing work requirements. The second option, and the second way that we'll be advocating for the protection of SNAP is in the Farm Bill's lifetime ban on SNAP benefits for individuals convicted of drug felonies. Next slide, please. Now, the cuts that the GOP are proposing and that are trying to push through don't make sense at all. It only benefits those with the greatest need. The 92% of the benefits go to households with income at or below the poverty line, and 1 in 4 beneficiaries are children. So these cuts, so it's important for us to keep in mind that when we're advocating against these cuts, we're advocating for children, and our elected officials have to know what we're talking about. The cuts provide for the SNAP, provides just enough funds for a subsistence diet that keeps children not being hungry for the school day, that keeps families just barely rolling along. So more can be done, but this is what we're working with in this Congress. We already have strict eligibility rules, including work requirements. Work requirements were increased as part of the debt ceiling negotiations, and more work requirements punish those for whom regular employment is an impossible goal. So we're advocating for a much broader spectrum of people, but it's all in the name of justice. The bill provides for key support for farmers and in rural economies. So when you're thinking about, your cousins and family that's out in rural America, the SNAP benefits definitely does undergird those communities. And improvements, and it also supports improvements to recipients' health, education, and economic self-sufficiency, and reduces other government benefits costs. There are benefits to SNAP that are widely seen, that are well documented, that we are using as part of the evidentiary-based advocacy that we'll be doing on Capitol Hill. Next slide, please. So now the Restore Act. I'm sure you all have heard about it. If you haven't heard about it, you'll probably see, you can go to networklobby.org and find some robust writing there. But the Restore Act, it repeals the SNAP lifetime exclusion of persons ever convicted of drug felonies, and it's long overdue. This legislation is known as the Restore Act, will end the cruel ban and must be included in this year's Farm Bill. That there is robust appetite for the inclusion of this bill in the Farm Bill, and we're working with members on both sides of the aisle in order to make sure that it stays whole. Now, the question has been raised, oh, I got SNAP benefits and I have a felony conviction. Well, many states have opted out of this federal policy because since it was enacted in 1996. However, 21 states throughout the country still have a ban in place with full or modified conditions, which creates higher barriers to accessing SNAP benefits and limits the number of people who can receive them. So the ban is just simply immoral, y'all. Its repeal will honor SNAP's basic purpose to prevent hunger in our nation. Formerly incarcerated individuals have already paid their debt to society during their time of incarceration. And those persons experience much higher thresholds of hurt and harm than the average citizen when re-entering back into community. So this ban punishes the families and children of those returning individuals as well. So, and families receive far lower SNAP benefits than parents, than when a parent is ineligible. So their children face the risk of hunger alongside the health and educational harms of living in poverty. So the ban basically violates any notion of fair and just criminal justice system, because it perpetuates punishment of unrelated to the individual's offense. It's harmful to the individual's reentry to the community. As I said before, most have few or no personal assets and face a hostile labor market. And the inability to afford food and for itself and family can doom any hope of successful reentry, which causes recidivism, which causes more problems in community. So when we're advocating for this ban, we're advocating for the lessening recidivism, helping out those persons that are formerly incarcerated, and making sure that our criminal legal system is just. The ban is counterproductive as a public safety measure. So studies show that less recidivism for returning individuals with SNAP than those barred from benefits. And the bar's participation in SNAP and the barring participation in SNAP, job training programs that can prevent recidivism. So, Network's goal in the Farm Bill. As Congress considers the Farm Bill and agricultural appropriations over the coming months, Network will resist any new devastating cuts and additional work requirements, and fully support the inclusion of the Restore Act. And by that, I will give it back to Sister Emily.
Thank you so much, Minister Christian. And we now are very pleased to welcome Serena Martin-Liguori from New Hour for Women and Children in Long Island to share a little bit about what SNAP means to her community.
Thank you so much for having me here. And Minister Watkins, your words are incredibly powerful. As the executive director of a nonprofit here in New York on Long Island, we work with women and children who have been impacted by incarceration. And what we know is that, you know, including the inclusion of the Restore Act in the 2023 Farm Bill will literally create safety. One of the things that we talk about very often among the women and children that walk through my doors, every year we work with 2,000 to 3,000 women returning to our community, and access to healthy food is at the top of their list. Now, New York State is currently not implementing the SNAP ban, and if New York State were to implement this, it would be devastating. 1 out of 3 Americans has a conviction. And what this means is that you are now, if you ban and do not allow people to have access to healthy food and those services, it means that you are indeed creating an unsafe environment for yourself and your community. Because if you are hungry, if you are not able to feed yourself and your children, you are going to be desperate, and desperation breeds crime. One of the things we talk about all the time at New Hour is, how do we extend hope? How do we support women coming home? And I will tell you, as a formerly incarcerated Latina myself, the struggle to make sure that basic needs are met for women and children who have been impacted by incarceration is huge. You know, my grandmother came from Puerto Rico and worked for her entire life in the Women, Infant, and Children's WIC program. She was bilingual, and she helped connect women in our local county here on Long Island to these needed benefits. So it feels full circle to be here with you, because one of the things that I think about very often in our work is, how do we extend support to people who so desperately need our help? And what this Restore Act would do would ensure that children are being fed. And one thing we know is that there is a direct correlation between poverty and crime. There is a direct correlation between how we intentionally oppress people in our community and create a system in our community where people are desperate. And frankly, if we are not able to pass and include the inclusion of the Restore Act, what we are doing is harming ourselves, because it means more people in our community are not getting the services and support they need to simply put food on their table. And that is unconscionable. So New Hour, we here on Long Island in New York continue to advocate for the Restore Act. And we also very much believe that when you have taken accountability for any harm done, whether that be a prison sentence or a jail sentence or a day behind bars, that once you are released, that should be the end of your sentence. You should no longer be penalized. And yet we know in the United States, the mass incarcerator that we are, that we continue to penalize people for the rest of their lives, and not just them, but their children, their grandchildren, their financial stability, and that has to end this year. We need to continue to find ways to create equality, and this, the inclusion of the Restore Act would certainly do that. So I'm happy to turn it back over, and we're going to continue to keep fighting for basic needs for our moms and kids and women and children.
Thank you so much, Serena, for those words. Thank you for highlighting for all of us the connection between our policy issues, the food justice and the criminal justice system reforms that just are so important, and highlighting that it really is in all of our best interests that we make different decisions and that we support all people. And so now I'd like to turn it over, before we get to question and answer, to our Executive Director, Mary Novak, for a short reflection.
Thank you, Sister Emily. As you have heard from our powerful speakers this evening, we return once again to call on Congress to keep its promise. To keep its promise and protect food, healthcare, and housing programs in this federal budget. Just 5 months ago, we were all gathered on Zoom to kick off the Thriving Communities campaign as we called on Congress to protect SNAP, WIC, housing, and other vital human needs programs. And in response, you, our advocates from across the country, wrote letters to the editor, called your members of Congress, you gathered in thriving community rallies, and our actions worked to protect the common good. Congress actually voted to protect food, healthcare, and housing programs in the federal budget. We thanked you then, and we thank you again now. But I am sad to say, as you heard the details just now, some members of Congress are once again trying to cut funding for these vital programs that enable our communities to thrive. And you've heard the personal witnesses tonight. These extremist members of Congress have found another way to try to remove the vital human needs programs, the funding for it in the federal budget, as Laura laid out at the beginning. And to make matters worse, they're threatening to shut down the government over this. Now, we should not be having this conversation right now. We've already taken care of that, but we're back here again. Instead, we should be talking about how to best care for each one of us. The attempt to balance the budget on the backs of those who live in poverty is not new. Our Catholic Christian faith has long called us to center economic justice. Back in 1986, in the document Economic Justice for All, the US bishops affirmed that human rights are the minimum conditions for life in our community. They went on to write that in Catholic teaching, human rights include not only civil and political rights, but also economic ones. They then recalled Pope St. John the 23rd's declaration that all people have a right to life, food, clothing, shelter, rest, medical care, education, and employment. And this means that when people are without a chance to earn a living and must go hungry and homeless, they are being denied basic rights. The bishops declared in that document that society must ensure that these rights are protected. We know that in order for all people to flourish and thrive, regardless of their zip code, racial identity, or income. We need a federal budget that upholds the dignity of all people, one that creates a preferential option for people who are pushed to the peripheries of our country and into poverty by the very structures we all live in today. I want to call your attention to what we heard in one of our thriving community rallies the last time we were here. In Long Island, Annie Halitz from the Long Island Jobs with Justice said, "This isn't just about the government and people being held hostage. It is a blatant attack on working people, on the hungry, on the homeless and work insecure, on children, on veterans, on the disabled, on women, on LGBTQI people, on Black and Brown communities, on our Indigenous neighbors." She closed by saying, "This is an attack on all of us." And as you just heard from Serena, we could not agree more. This is an attack on all of us, because wherever one person is denied the opportunity to thrive, our communities are denied the opportunity to thrive. So thank you for listening to my colleagues tonight, and there's more to come to lay out the actions that we need. But I encourage you through those actions to recommit yourselves to the continuous and long haul work of building the beloved community. And today that means ensuring the opportunity, as we heard tonight, for all people to thrive. Back to you, Emily.
Thanks so much, Mary, for that beautiful reflection. And I know you've all had comments, questions that you've been putting in the Q&A box. And so I'd like to invite our policy team back on screen to answer some of those questions. So Jarrett, Laura, Christian, welcome back. Laura, I'm going to turn the first question over to you. I've got a couple of questions about what is a CR. Can you give us a little bit of intel about that?
I'm sorry. I turn into my Washington mode, and that is not productive. So it is called a continuing resolution. So just dirty little secret. I'm an old teacher. Many of my students, and when I was a student myself, I must say I did the same thing. Waited to the last minute to get everything done. And so in Washington, there is a mechanism called a continuing resolution for times when Congress can't finish the budget. As long I've been in town 30 years now, I can't remember a time when Congress finished their budgeting in September. It is a very tried and true process where you basically extend the previous year's funding levels while Congress has time to figure out the details. So we are looking for a clean continuing resolution. Frankly, we would love to be able to get a bump up, if possible, for things like emergency funding or WIC. But what really for us, the central question for us is we should not get anything below the level that was agreed to earlier this year. So that's why we're saying, Congress, keep your promise. House, Senate, and the president agreed. We agree. Let's get it done.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Jared, I've got a question for you, kind of two forms. Can you explain fully refundable? And if parents don't pay taxes, are they not eligible for the child tax credit? Can you give us some intel on those?
Yes. So the child tax credit is created for those people that currently pay income taxes, right? So, and there's a minimum amount that the IRS wants you to pay, right, in income that you've made. Fully refundable, what we are trying to do in the legislation that has been proposed by Representative DeLauro and Senator Brown is take that minimum amount, that $25,000, and bring that down to those people that are making minimum wage, so they would receive the entire credit. They would be eligible for the entire credit. It would not just mean that you have to make more than minimum wage, because there are, as we know, millions of people that do not make minimum wage that would not be eligible for the credit. Another piece of it is you have to have some income currently. There are millions of grandparents that are raising children that do not have income anymore, right? So we want to bring those folks into the program and make it so that they can have access to the child tax credit, even though they do not make income. So fully refundable, trying to bring more people into the pot, so to speak, and actually looking at eligibility requirements and changing those so that those people that are at most in need of the child tax credit can get access to it. Because right now, that's just not the case.
Excellent. Thank you, Jarrett. And Christian, one for you. Can you talk a little bit more about how SNAP acts as a key support to farmers and rural economies?
All right. Well, thank you for that question. Well, just think of it like this. Those that are in rural communities have limited access to resources that those in urban and suburban cities would have. Most of the people that work in the rural areas are working to undergird our nation's infrastructure, whether it's through farming or through teaching, or like what those things that only you can do out in rural settings, right? So with that comes limited opportunity for income. I don't think there's any multi-million-dollar jobs out in rural communities. I don't think there's, grocery stores that are able to charge lower prices. In fact, they have to charge higher prices out in rural communities because of the export, the way in which the goods get to them. So there's an imbalance. There's a financial imbalance to those communities. SNAP helps offset those imbalances, if that makes sense. And so, at least that's my understanding of it. Laura, the consummate teacher, would you like to step in and offer a little bit more here? Offer a little bit more color and nuance for us?
The only color I want to add is it's a jobs program. It's a jobs program. So the farmers need to sell their product, and USDA through the SNAP program buys a tremendous amount of product that then gets distributed. So we've, and that goes to the issue of bipartisan cooperation. We have always worked with farmers, with folks in rural communities who actually have higher SNAP numbers and CTC numbers than in urban places. Poverty is a real thing in these communities. So it is a win-win. It has always been a win-win. Thankfully, there are, again, we just got to hold up the Senate. You can talk to the Republican members from Indiana, particularly Mr. Braun. You could talk to Mr. Bozeman. They're for it. The resistance is in the House. So I think it's important to call resistance where it is. And it's not even members who, it's those 33 members that are really trying to sow chaos as a strategy and not get to yes. So I'll leave that there, Emily.
Great, thank you. And I know that you all asked some really great questions that we're just not able to answer in the time we have. Don't worry, we will follow up with some answers via email after this webinar. So we will get those answers to you as best as we can. Thank you all for your great engagement. And thank you to our policy experts. But don't go anywhere yet, because we still have work to do. It is clear from the information that we've shared today, that from the stories of Lupe and Serena, from the poverty data that just came out from the Census Bureau, that poverty is a public policy choice, and we can make a different choice. So I'd like to invite Sister Eilish to join us to tell us how we do that.
Thanks, Sister Emily. And I know that all of you on here are pros at calling your members of Congress. And so the first thing that we would like all of you to do is next Tuesday on September 26th, we will be hosting a call-in day, and you will receive more information about this in your email. And so we are encouraging you to call your members of Congress, on Tuesday, September 26th. Next, we encourage you to write a letter to the editor to share some of this information that you heard tonight. And at Network, we will be in touch with some of you who live in critical states where we want to do a concerted push for letters to the editor. And finally, most important is education. We know that you are connected to many people, many different congregations, your friends, your family, your coworkers. So we encourage you to share the recording of this webinar, and you will receive that in an email tomorrow with your friends, with everyone you know, so that they can also learn about what is going on right now, and that they too can take action. And I'll turn it back to you, Emily.
Thanks so much, Eilish. And with that, we're going to send you all forth to do your great work, because we know that you are some of the best advocates we have in this country. And so we are so grateful for the work that you do. It's time to go and do that work. Let us know if you need anything in the meantime. But as Sister Eilish said, we will be following up with some materials to help you with that, some more information. And we are so glad that you were able to join us tonight. Have a great rest of your evening and stay connected.